the horse either doesn't run or I go and meet the king, whichever you want, I don't care. Like, we've come all this way, we need to get the horse saddled up before we go and do it. I remember standing there, we were about 100 metres before the winning post in the grandstand, and I just remember her walking the gates.
Go! They're racing for the King Charles III Stakes, and Rogue Lightning reared slightly as the stalls opened. He's one of the slowest ones away.
And I changed from hoping to run well to just hoping she didn't embarrass us. It was just a real matter of the first seconds was just, I just don't want you to run last.
And Twilight causes the back marker of that group on the left, who are in front here.
The first half of the race unfolded beautifully. She began well, which is always a trick with her. She can be slow out. She followed the right horse in regional. You could see Asheen Murphy looking for somewhere to go. That horse wasn't taking her anywhere sort of halfway through the race, and she had to hook inside and cover a bit of extra ground to meet up with the other division. Sort of loomed up, and by that stage they were going past us, and she'd hit the front, and it was just everything erupted.
Asfoora coming with a strong challenge now. It's Big Edge to Asfoora, believing Makarova, regional nearest to us. Here's Asfoora, the light blue sleeve. She's grabbed the lead from Big Edge, and Asfoora has gone on to win the King Charles III.
We went from hoping she wouldn't embarrass us to hoping she'd win and hoping she'd won, because I never saw the last probably 100 metres of the race. I was just engulfed in a scrum. I'm Henry Dwyer. I trained Asfoora, who we were lucky enough to win the King Charles III Stakes with at Ascot last year. We've got about 45 horses here at Ballarat. We've got a little farm on the beach down at St Leonards where we train a few horses that need the beach environment. I can't remember my Year 9 maths classes, whatever the opposite of linear is, but non-linear maybe. There might have been a non-linear path of my training career. All through school I was right into it, sitting up on the Studbook website every night as a teenager, just going through pedigrees and sort of scraped through uni and came out the other side with a degree that I was probably never going to use in any sort of shape or form. And I got to the end of uni and thought, well, I hated that and I loved going down the stables, and by that stage I was, working in a good capacity for, I think it was Robert Smurden and Russell Cameron and Dan O'Sullivan down at Flemington. So I've, gone from, never really touching a horse when I was 15 or 16 to, being in inverted commas, a proper trainer. I think I had 2 Group 1 winners within about a year of training, and once again thought how easy is this? But then the Group 1 winners dried up, and I thought, well, this isn't as much fun as it sort of was early doors. So Asfoora has come along at a handy time, sort of 8 or 9 years down the track. In the very early days with Asfoora, there was absolutely no indication that she'd be a good horse at any stage. I looked at her at the sales, I just couldn't have her. She was immature, she was backward, there was nothing particularly likeable about her. She was passed in subsequently. Akram rung me up and said he had 2 fillies passed in from the same sale and he'd like me to come up to the farm and pick which one I wanted to train. Rung up Akram on the way home and said, thanks very much for the opportunity, Akram. I'd love to train that unencumbered filly. She's a really nice filly. And he sort of paused and he was a bit despondent, and he said, I thought you'd choose a Flying Artie filly. I said, Akram, it's fine. I've got whatever you want me to train, I'm more than happy to train. I'm just perplexed about why you got me up here to choose. He said, I thought you'd choose that filly. And so anyway, she ended up in my care, not because I wanted to buy her at the sales, I didn't. Not because I wanted to pick her out of a paddock of 2 horses, 50% chance I picked her and I didn't. But fate plays a part in most things, I think. It's a really good story from humble beginnings of how it's not all about buying $1 million yearlings, it's just about getting the right horse in the stable and looking after them and giving them a chance. The horses that are about to go out and work, they stand on this side. Once again, you've got the heaters there just to keep them a little bit warmer. You can see the hill there, that's Mount Pisgah, so back in the day that was an active volcano, so when it erupted, we've ended up with all this red volcanic soil here, and it just gets very muddy and cluggy in winter and gets packed up in their feet. So she's now started to grow a winter coat, and it's just, as I said, it's just cosmetic, but you get over there, they're a bit hotter, they're a bit warmer. She's a buzzy filly as it is. You get the 30, 32 degree days over there. She's coming from 11 degree days here. It's a bigger change for them. So you get your barriers there, that's the start of it. 200 metre mark, 400 metre mark. This sort of the gap between our property and the next property was a train line, and the train line came right through here where we are now and up to the pathway where the horses go over to the racecourse. So back in the day that would have had dozens of punters hanging off the rafters and the sides of it, and when people used to go to the races, it was would have been a packed house. They had to train from Ballarat to Miners Rest. I'd been to Ascot twice previously, once as an 18-year-old backpacker. I went over there and I was in the whatever the lowest enclosure you could get on a budget, and I think that was before they put the new grandstand in and renovated it, so I saw the old Ascot. But yeah, I got an appreciation of it, and it's just the pomp and the ceremony and the pageantry. It's just an amazing experience. Firstly, without a horse, just being there is amazing, but once we factored in the horse last year and the people you meet and the doors that opened for us, it was just a remarkable experience from start to finish. We had a big group of owners and friends there. The day was a bit of a whirlwind, but we were down in the pre-parade ring saddling her up, and I was literally doing up the girth. Someone came and tapped me on the shoulder, I think it was Adrian Beaumont, and said, oh, the King would like to see you now. I was halfway through saddling the horse up. I think I said to Adrian, I just need a couple of minutes here. Just give me a couple of minutes. I need to get the bridle on. I'll get the earmuffs on. Once the horse is out, I'll be down there, no worries. And he said, no, you can't make the King wait. You've got to go now. I said, well, the horse either doesn't run or I go and meet the King. Whichever you want, I don't care. Like, we've come all this way. We need to get the horse saddled up before we go and do it. So we did that. Raced down there. He was, waiting there for us, and Camilla was next to him, and yeah, it was just an amazing experience. There's a really, well, not a good photo, but a unique photo, you might say, of the King and I looking at the race book. At the stage we were talking about the horse and where she was trained and her form and stuff, and we both had our hats on, almost like we're equals or something, and not many people have got a photo on them in the presence of the King with their hat on, so that's a nice one on the wall at home. And he was really good, actually, very low key, easy to talk to, laid back. I think I said to him before the race that absolute pleasure to meet you, and a real thrill obviously, but it'd be much better if we could meet you after the race when you're presenting the trophy. That'd be better. And so he had a little chuckle and said, we'll see if we can make that happen. And then when I saw him after the race, he said, I told you we can do this, we make it happen. It's hard to quantify enjoyment as a thing, but I just said to a few people, just think of the most amount of fun you can possibly have and times it by 3. Like, it was just an amazing experience. Ascot was great, obviously, and the excitement of that, but just pinching yourself every morning, waking up going, I've got a horse good enough to be here. I'm rubbing shoulders with the elite of Newmarket trainers, and they're asking me questions about how I train her and this sort of thing, which is just a phenomenal situation to be in. When it all ended last year, we obviously went to Ascot and then Goodwood and York, and there was a bit of a sombre feeling after York because there was a fair chance that might have been the end of it. And then all of a sudden she sort of had a few issues and she's come back and she's won first up. It wasn't the biggest race ever, it was a Group 3 race in Adelaide, but it just showed that she was back and had that will to win.
Asfoora in front, welcome back to Australia.
We're going to take her to Flemington on Friday. She can have a nice little jump out there. And then, yeah, all roads lead to Ascot first up over there. So there's a lot that sort of goes into it, thinking and logistics-wise about how to get her there in perfect order. We've only got the 2 weeks before the race over there, so we need to have her fully fit and ready to go before she leaves here, just so she can spend 2 weeks settling in over there. A lot of fate is involved. It could have been any one of 20 trainers that ended up with that horse. I didn't want her, so luckily Akram rung me back and insisted that I train her and didn't go elsewhere, and yeah, luckily everything's gone to plan ever since. And it's incredibly hard to get a horse to win a race at Ballarat Racecourse, which is 400 metres from our back door. You can get that many things go wrong, that many setbacks. We took a horse overseas for 4 months and never had one issue. It was just amazing.